going to move to our 1 p.m. timed item 11A, Greater Sacramento Economic Council 25-26 presentation.
And it's my pleasure to introduce the President and CEO, Barry Broom.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the dreaded clicker, which I think if I click the big button, it goes to the right, right? So I'm a really highly digitally skilled guy. So thank you for the support. So as you know, we'll get through this briefly. We have completed our first 10 years, and we have over 50 CEOs on our board now, which is a miracle. And then, of course, 22 communities, which is another miracle. So the organization is in really strong shape. We actually probably have 3 to 5 CEO interested in coming on board on top of this. We're trying to build a tribal relationship, so the Auburn tribe is one of our aspirants. So just like we built the regional model with business and government, we now have Shingle Springs and Enterprise Rancheria, so we're hoping to get Wilton and then get Auburn on the board. And now we've had the tribal, governmental, higher education, traditional CEO network. So the market can act in unison with each other around a single strategy and get higher results. So we've had a number 3 rating internationally by our peers. UC Davis was just rated number 3, and I congratulated Gary May on tying me. I'm joking. But so this is, basically why do we work together? Everybody knows, fortunately, Roseville and Placer County is a job importer. So you live in Sacramento, you're probably going to Roseville for your job. If you live in Lincoln, you might be going to Sacramento for the job. So no one community on average produces about half their jobs. So we share the economy. It's a job and an economic productivity advantage, and that's the objective of the organization. We just went over and analyzed all the economic models that are succeeding, and they're a construct between public-private partnerships, higher ed, and industries of the future. Bosch would be a great example of that. Silicon carbide chip, which we're anxiously hoping for our CHIPS Act award, which so far we hear more favorable than not, but obviously it's a nervous time being in California looking for help with the federal government. So hopefully, I want to compliment Kevin Kiley. The congressman's worked hard on this, and I think we will, I'm hoping we'll prevail. Obviously, so we looked at the growth, 2001, 2023. You can see, anchored by the last 10 years, Greater Sacramento is now regionally on a top-tiered growth, and it mirrors the communities that have the public-private partnership objective. GDP growth in Phoenix. I happen to have been the president there for 10 years, 05 to 15, and then Phoenix is number 2 in productivity, now Greater Sacramento. I've never been to Pittsburgh, so those are just the only responsibilities I have to the chart. This, I think, is really interesting on the formation of the organization in 2015. Look at the GDP growth compared to prior years in the region, and look at the productivity growth. We actually had 2006 to 17, we had negative productivity growth, very small GDP. Now, 2015, 2023, to your right, top GDP growth, top productivity growth, right? So that's engineers, science, technology, the life sciences, so on and so forth. So obviously, with Solidigm and our amazing silicon carbide chip production with Bosch, that's kind of anchoring this move towards semiconductor. So on completion of both those, Solidigm's going to go public there in Rancho Cordova. We will be a top 5, top 10 U.S. market in the semiconductor industry, and that includes having Intel cut their employment almost by 50% over time. So imagine having, we know the story of HP, we know the story of these big players that are in our town, and then they migrate out, and then, we end up suffering from the out-migration. I think one of the real accomplishments of everyone has been to turn this industry into something bigger than Intel, and now, hopefully with the CHIPS Act award, we'll be powering up this industry. This industry is going to continue to nearshore and probably increase 800% between now and 2040. and it's expected to double between now and 2030. So obviously, we're going to need a resolution to the tariffs to make that happen, which I think will come. And then hopefully with the CHIPS Act award, we'll be in business and we'll be highly productive in this space. Aggie Square has opened up, focusing on cell therapeutics and diagnostics. If we get a chance to tour that, you'll see it's a phenomenal asset, and it'll take a while to get off the ground. But I think, you know, Samsung, Qualcomm, AMD have all expanded here. What's not on this is Micron. Micron came in 2009. They're now pushing towards 1,000 engineers. So those are the kind of things that are going to get us through all these market conditions and these challenges we're going to have in California. So obviously, you know, whether it's GSEC or Sierra or Los Rios, you know, we try to really flow our economic philosophy through our universities. I'm sure you're aware Sierra College received the highest rating internationally of any college in the world on its Megatronics platform, which has been largely built to train veterans and connect them into the Bosch enterprise. And Drisha's here, so she's the one that gets credit for bringing the veterans into the play. So, you know, getting these assets organized around a single mission has shown real results. And then, you know, we just got some things we're trying to figure out. What are we doing in the future on public-private partnerships? Sports and sports marketing brands are really important. You might have seen Sacramento State's vision. It was in the Sacramento Bee Sunday. But, you know, one of the things is we chase billionaires around to give us a soccer team. We were able to get Wilton Rancheria to put $200 million into Sac Republic. That vote's at 2 o'clock today. Very interesting that Mayor McCarty came out against labor opposition, which is a hopeful sign, you know, that we can get some independence from politics and do what's right. So I'm really excited to see how this vote happens today, Sacramento City Council. That'll be a $500 million investment in the rail yards along with Kaiser's investment. And there's 200,000 cars a day that drive by the rail yards. And it doesn't exactly give us a great look. So what I'm hoping in the next 9 months is people are going to see a soccer stadium going up, an entertainment facility next to it, and then see Kaiser going up. And it's going to really do a lot for our image. We've had the athletics, which put us in a national spotlight. We do have an MLB objective for 2028. So that'll be very exciting. There's only 5 cities that are certified to pursue it. So the athletics has been a little bit of a hit and miss because their external affairs skill set is relatively low. You know, I've tried to explain to them, I think if you put Las Vegas all over the stadium, it could bother people from Sacramento, but they didn't see that. I think they're starting to see that now as they're pivoting their name around Sacramento a little bit more. But the A's performance on revenue in West Sacramento is 12 times higher than Oakland. So that's a metric now that we will take into the MLB conversation. So there's Charlotte, Nashville, Portland, Salt Lake, and Sacramento. We're the only 5 Major League Baseball certified cities for the 2 expansions in 2028. There'll be stiff competition, but there's some talk that the Tampa Bay Rays may relocate out of Tampa. So it could be a 3rd team. And a lot of lessons in that for the community as that Las Vegas deal struggles, that we had a better option for the team than Las Vegas, but we didn't see that in ourselves. So they went to Las Vegas, and then, you know, Light the Beam, just kind of an indication of how sports brands help us. This is a really proud moment for us. We brought in, we launched in 15. We brought in the Brookings Monitor. 17 to take a snapshot of how well we were doing, and we weren't doing really well. If you'd have seen the 2015 numbers, they were a lot worse. And so now, you know, this region is in the top 10 in the United States in growth, 7th in inclusion, and we're 20th in prosperity. And we're the 28th size market in the U.S. So the goal, which we achieved, I think largely because of the great leadership of Roseville, Placer County, Lincoln, Rockland, and others, was, working hard together achieves a lot of results. And this is something everybody should be really proud of. So, 72 to 20 in prosperity, 80 to 7 in inclusion, and number 3 in geographic inclusion, which means Placer County, El Dorado County, Sutter County share their economy more evenly than any other U.S. market but 2. So it just kind of speaks to, right, we're not going to just impact Roseville and make it so nobody wants to live in Roseville anymore, right? How do we build that economy in the Lincoln and Rockland? How do we distribute it more evenly in the region? so we have economic prosperity without being impacted. This is a tale of two communities. California not doing so well. So Greater Sacramento is now number 2 in the West for job growth. We're the 8th fastest growing region in the United States for educational attainment. So this is why you build around these universities. The students are now participating in the economy, and they're more likely to stay. And the economy has a little bit more of a novel picture to it, so it gives students an opportunity. And then number 2 for tech growth, and number 2 for life science growth. And then on the right is the California story, which unfortunately is very different. And the challenges in LA and San Francisco and Oakland are not going to go away. And these structurally issues may even get worse. And so it's really important up here that we're carving ourselves out as an independent value proposition nationally, that if you want to invest in California, you want to invest in Greater Sacramento. And to give you just something that recently happened, June 16th, the top zero-emission vehicle semi-truck company is coming to look at our region, and they're bringing their board, their management team, and their private equity group, and they're out of Manhattan. And they told their consultants that the data says they should be on the West Coast, and the consultants recommended Sacramento region and sent them here without talking to us. So those are the kind of things that don't normally happen. So it'd be 500 engineers. So we'll see how we do. But the entire company's coming here, which is very unusual. The board's coming, their investors are coming. And these are the kind of things that let us know that we're starting to break out in that conversation. There's a conversation about California, it's pretty tough, but there's a conversation about our region, it's pretty positive. So these will be really interesting to see what happens. I was talking with Kirk Euler about this. We've been asked by members of the Newsom administration, would we run a jobs bill? So this was a board retreat document, of which we said, what's a jobs bill to you? Because it might be different than us, right? So these are some of the things. We don't normally get involved in state policy because they just swallow us, compared to LA and San Francisco. But these are things that we're talking about that could be really beneficial to Placer County, and especially Bosch, into the future. So we'll see how that goes. We're supposed to meet with them in the next 2 weeks. It's an unusual move for us, but we do have the skills to do these things. And if, there's support for it, it'd be in our interest to do it. Because some of these policies just don't help us. And if they can be restructured in a way that's more thoughtful, like accelerated depreciation, if Bosch is making a $2 billion equipment investment, to be able to write that off in 3 years versus 10 years on $2 billion is a remarkable savings. And what that'll do, that'll allow what will happen in years 4 and 5, Bosch will have the capital capacity to start reinvesting in the site, right? So that's why that policy matters. And Cal competes, it's really not been a successful policy. So the R&D tax credit, some of these other things, we'll see how we do. So this is something that I'm really excited about. Ashley Montgomery's group, if you're not familiar with Three Strands, it was founded in Placer County. So, there's a lot of single moms in particular, but there's also single dads that are out there that are working full-time at $35,000 a year and requiring the federal government to provide them daycare. I'm sure you hear this from people all the time, that bone-crushing cost of daycare. And so one of the things that we've thought about doing is, what if we built a very specific skilled model for single parents with kids in federally funded daycare programs? And how would we get them out, and how would we get them off? So I have $1 million from one of my board members to launch this as a pilot. It'll start as a pilot. But there are several thousand single parents in our region that are working full-time on $36,000 a year incomes, trying to raise 2 kids. And then we have employers tell us we can't find great people, right? So, what if these single parents and mothers were the great people that could come into healthcare? So I think this is going to be something really cool. We call it Opportunity Sacramento, because it's just about creating opportunities for people. So we're going to roll this out in the pilot. It's been really demanding, but we went into Del Paso Heights, which is kind of the poorest neighborhood in the entire region. And we surveyed 150 single moms living in Del Paso Heights. And 15% of them had bachelor's degree. And they're living in poverty in Del Paso Heights. Why? 50% of them have college at some level, and 85% had a high school diploma. And so when you're trying to move these poverty indicators, it's really important that you're smart and targeted. And I really like this. So we talked about California Jobs First. we'll see if people, we don't know who keeps their word now, but we're supposed to be getting $10 million to launch a quantum computing engineering school at Sac State and UC Davis, primarily UC Davis. That will go a long way to helping us with what we're trying to accomplish. Newmark, which you're an investor in, are the consulting group connected to Secretary Klutnick, ironically, we got a little lucky there, who's built our semiconductor strategy that'll be more granular. We'll roll that out in the fall. So, how do we take the life science and semiconductor and storage industry to the next level? And then obviously this California Jobs First is a large government initiative that Valley Vision ran because we really didn't have the ability to spend all that time in people's communities. Talked a little bit about MLB. We're going to go to New York, hopefully with the Bosch story, right? So the story of our region is starting to change. We're getting national press. So we're just kind of holding our breath on this CHIPS award, hoping it comes through. We've been given favorable indications that it will. And then next year, we're going to go into New York City and bring some of our board members and CEOs to go into the national media and tell the story of the resurgence and rise of this region and try to contrast that story that's constantly being written by California. And we're going to need validation. So Solidime's looking at doing an IPO. Bosch gets that CHIPS Act money. That's the story we're taking to New York and hopefully other achievements. And that's it. Very simple presentation. I think I did it in the allotted time that Gloria told me.
Yes.
I know you guys were waiting for an hour and going get him off the stage, but I thank you for your friendship and your support, and I think we're on the right track.
Great, thank you. Comments, questions from the board? Supervisor Gustafson?
Thank you, Barry. As usual, I'm trying to keep up with your words, your vision, and your drive and passion and commitment to this region is unbelievable. And we can't thank you enough for that drive and that commitment to improve our region. What more can we do to support your efforts?
Well, first off, you're the poster child. So I always tell folks, when I try to help El Dorado County, which is really struggling, I asked El Dorado County, I said, what is your vision? And they said, we want to be like Placer County. So one of the things when you're doing things the right way, people learn from that, and I don't do that a lot because, people's feelings get hurt and they hear enough about Placer County and Roseville. But I just want to give you, first off, setting that example is really important. I think, Congressman Kiley is the linchpin on this Bosch Act, and I know Gloria's helped me with him, but I think, giving Kevin the support he needs to go in and do what he needs to do right now is really important, and encouraging Kevin to really carve us out of this California conversation that we're very different than the rest of the state, and we need the Trump administration support on the Bosch program alone, I think is really important. And we'd like to have a relationship with Secretary Klutnick. We'd like to bring him to Placer County. We'd like to have him tour the Bosch facility. So your leadership on that is a little more important than mine. So I think that is really helpful. And just, continue to be open to building on and doing new things, which you always are.
Great.
Thank you.
And a crime lab wouldn't hurt?
Crime lab will help.
Supervisor DiMattei.
Yeah, thanks. That was great. Thank you for all the economic stuff. What I picked out, what I was kind of concerned about is you had interviewed a lot of people who had college degrees that didn't have jobs. I guess my deeper dive would be, what was their degree in? And if it's a degree that is really not beneficial to the community, why are these universities pushing these degrees, and why not they should step up to the plate and say, look, this is not the path you should go if you want to work. So that's what I would want to ask is, okay, great, you have a degree, grateful that you went to college, but why didn't the university push them to go into a field that is more desirable for our area? So I guess that's an answer I'd want to know.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be the quick answer. But one of the things we're getting is some real data on this. And this is really important because, so the trick to this is really, stackable credentials and certifications through a Sierra College, right? Because these guys don't have 3 or 4 years to go to graduate school and get their MBA. They're starving to death. So what we're trying to do is, who's work ready and willing, right? Step one. So if you're working $36,000 a year trying to keep 2 kids alive, I bet you'd be willing to do something to change that. The nice thing about that is that's a take-home pay of around $22,000. So, these workforce boards have incredible administrative allowances associated with them. So the goal is, can I get a corporation to give a $22,000 stipend to a mom to go spend 6 months to a year at Sierra or Los Rios and pick up some hard skills like medical technician certifications. So we'll first do this with the healthcare system because they can't find these medical technicians. They pay like $80,000 a year out of the gates. After a year, they go to 96, right? And they can deliver that certification in a 6-month window. So if I can get a corporate sponsor for the person, we're gonna get them to quit their job, basically, and say, look, you can find $35,000 a year jobs, but quit your job. Here's a financial stipend to cover maybe housing and food. You're going to go to Sierra College. We're going to put you in a 6 months mechatronics program. When you're done, you're going to make $80,000 at Bosch. And that's what we're trying to get to. So whether they had a degree in art history or something, I don't know. But a lot of this, it's like any poverty trap. Who knows? Who knows who went through a tough divorce, who has a mental health issue, who battled addiction. My hunch is they probably had some life experience that trapped them. But we looked at this, these are folks that have been working 4 or 5 years in the same job. So if we can get them to a technical skill into the healthcare system, we can change their lives. And as you take people out of those low income experiences, that's a big productivity gain for the economy.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Yep.
Supervisor Jones.
Yeah, just thank you, Barry, for the presentation. With Supervisor Gustafson, you go very quickly. You cover a lot of ground in a very short amount of time. Going back to the folks that are in Rio Linda with degrees and such, if they're raising kids already, they're fighting an uphill battle because even if you make $60,000 a year, you're paying a whole bunch of that money towards childcare.
Yep.
If there's no availability of childcare. And I agree with you that I think childcare, somehow we have to think of some way that we can make it so that it's not such a big hurdle to climb for working people. A lot of moms stay home after they have the baby because they're losing money to go back to work.
Yeah.
They have to pay for daycare. But and also to proximity to jobs. They're out in Rio Linda, are they really even able to search the market out here in the Roseville area or whatever, where all the jobs are? And so I don't know if you're doing anything to try to pull people out of there who maybe have abilities for this. I know you're talking about sending them to a Sierra College or something like that to get some kind of short-term, maybe certificate or some type of degree to help them and make them more job-worthy.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing.
Yeah, it'd be great, so one of the things, if you remember, the interesting thing about systems is you do something that's better than the system, which is what we did on the digital skills. If you remember that, we went in the inner city during COVID and took 50 people out of the inner city. And then we went to the workforce board and said, here's a really good system for you. And we found out that they liked the one that they had, so they weren't too interested in changing. So I think the key to this thing is, what is this system that we have to put together? So, we're going to start with 25, then we're going to go to 50. And then the question is, can we go to 500, right? And then, you're right, it's probably 72,500 is the number they got to hit. So they got to have a skill to hit that number.
Right.
And then the question is why, and then I think the other thing too is, they probably don't have any confidence, right? So they're stuck, they're shattered. So we're gonna have to build some confidence and some resiliency in them. And I think this can be, I've been calling this the new United Way. If you're my age, the United Way used to have like magic dust on top of CEOs' heads, and whenever they wanted, the CEOs would go out and raise money. When I was coming up, I'd see these United Way campaigns, and I'm like, God, this guy's got like, what do you got, like mind control techniques over these? And then, the United Way ran into some problems the way other nonprofits do on questionable managing of money and conduct, and everybody went away from them. So when I talk to the CEOs, it's like, what's the one big social objective you could grab that would really matter to you, that could also help you? And wouldn't it be cool to take these moms out of poverty and also solve your labor shortages? So the money to do this is their payroll. So they don't have to go find a chunk of money, right? They just gotta have confidence in their payroll. And so at the end of the certification, whatever it is, the goal would be give them a job for 1 year. If you give them an internship for 1 year at $72,000, they don't lose their federal daycare benefits because it's an internship and it's not a permanent job. At the end of that year, you'll know what kind of worker you have. And if you keep them, then they'll be able to move off this federal dependency. If they didn't perform, then they at least got a year experience to figure out what they're doing. So it's still very experimental at this point. But I think, we had a lot of success with the digital skills. This is going to be a little bit more complicated. But I think, we're very committed to this because I think there's got to be some response from the CEOs in the community on this daycare crisis, some response on these folks that are at the bottom of the economic change. We just can't ignore them.
Right.
And we're probably not going to get government support. So we're going to have to do something more creative to help and to help ourselves. So that's the goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are a lot of people in this Greater Placer County that are probably good material for workforce, but because of a lot of hiccups in their life, they're in a position where, like you said, they have no confidence. How do we get to those people? How do we find them? How do we find the ones that are worthy of a job, that can capable, and that sort of thing, and to find them, especially with Bosch coming, a lot of jobs coming with Bosch, and then hopefully we attract other people. Hope you're helping Rockland try to find some.
Oh yeah, we're helping Rockland. Rockland's doing well.
They're mad at us, so
Well,
we won't talk about that.
Yeah. So we will help. We're going to help Rockland, and we're going to help Lincoln too. And Lincoln's got some cool stuff with that airport.
Yes.
We just got to kind of learn what, we got to get into the execution of these things. But so that there's a professional organization that manages the federal daycare program called Child Action. So I literally know there's 5,230 moms in this trap, and we did the Del Paso Heights data. So if we did the system-wide data, I mean, does 1,000 of those moms have a bachelor's degree and they're stuck? Well, we should be able to move them into a living wage and then start to change the mentality in the community and in their own mentality about that. Don't give up. We haven't given up on you. We still see you as an asset in our community, and give them a chance to prove that.
Yes, exactly. I agree completely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything like Supervisor Gustus had said that we can do?
Yeah, we're going to need some. First thing, we got to figure it out because it's clumsy. Because you got all these federal rules. We don't want them to go into some program and lose their daycare. No. Right? Because the daycare is $3,000 a month.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so we're mapping that out with legal on how to do this in a way to where, actually, technically, the dream is 5,000 small businesses just take one. Imagine if you had 5,000 small businesses go, we'll put $25,000 up, help this person go through a training program, and we'll give them a job at the end of it. So if you could take 5,000 people at the snap of the fingers if you clean this thing up. And so we even talked about, like, how would we do that? Because that's the old United Way model. So I remember being a kid and being forced to raise money for the United Way, begrudgingly. But everyone did whatever United Way wants. So how do we create something like that?
Well, great.
Thank you.
Let us help.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you,
We really
Madam Chair.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your
Have
time.
a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for coming all the way to Placer County. Okay, we're going to move on to, yes. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? I forgot to ask.
How could you forget? Michael Garabedian. So I hope all these groups that are coming and individuals are going to come with transportation solutions, because what you keep putting before them is recent failure. Widening 65, building Placer Parkway to dump on 99 where people will be traffic jams to Sacramento. You've got to come up with something. You've got to bring talent and knowledge to be able to move people here. It's already a nightmare, and it's going to just get worse and worse because of all the units that have already been approved. And those solutions are a very old, worn-out idea. And it's misleading to suggest that widening 65 is going to help solve anything. That's just crazy. It's just wrong. And so here we're getting these bright companies coming and visiting them, and they're coming here. And they're going to bring people who are going to say, hey, we're going to have to figure out how to do something. These people won't do anything. They won't tell you that. You know, they'll work with you, hopefully, and get Placer County moving to solve this critical problem that is a rolling nightmare. You know it better than I. So, wake up.
Thank you, Mr. Garabedian. Any other comments in here? And yes.
Good afternoon, Kirk Euler, Placer Business Alliance. 3 quick things. First of all, Placer County should be proud. Placer was the second public jurisdiction to embrace GSEC and become a part of it after the city of Sacramento, led by Mayor Johnson, who brought Barry here from Phoenix. Second thing, what Barry just pointed out is Placer County doesn't have to be better than everybody across the U.S. We got to be better than others in California, because corporate recruiters or locators are saying you need a presence on the West Coast. If Placer County just stands that much taller above other opportunities in California, you will continue to see the kinds of wins that Barry was talking about. And third thing is, I got $20 that says that Mr. Garabedian drove a single family car up here, or a single vehicle up here, and I didn't take public transit. I got $20 on that.
Yes, please come on up.
Hi, I'm Drisha Leggett. I'm leading the Veterans Workforce Alliance, and so I want to thank the board for being behind the launch with Bosch in this amazing initiative. If we didn't have our Placer County Economic Development team, our business network team, and our Veterans Services Officer, this would have never happened. And since we started this 9 months ago, we now have over 50 organizations that are cross-section of employers, of military and government agencies, of local officials, and workforce development and workforce training and education programs for the first time, all working together on an employment pipeline that takes work-ready veterans and prepares them for good, high-wage, high-tech jobs and makes it easier for the employers to find them who want to hire them, and for the vets to be prioritized as they should be for serving our country. So I want to thank you because Placer County has led this effort, and Bosch wants to thank you for being their partner in this effort. And I wanted to let you know that because of this, we have already expanded into the 5-county region, and the model that we're developing here, we hope to use as a model that will be duplicated at other Bosch sites throughout the country, which means what started here could end up influencing and putting good veterans with good jobs up to 250,000 veterans in the next 10 years. So thank you to Placer County for your vision and for your support, and thank you for supporting our Placer County team that have been night and day working with me to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments in the chambers? Okay, anyone online?
Yes, Chair, we have one online. Diane, please unmute your mic and give your comments.
Greetings again, Supervisors. Diane Louise Alessi from Christian Valley Park. And Michael, thank you for your comment about transportation. I mean, you know, when you, as I've stated before, I was born in Anaheim, but mostly Orange Groves. And I just watched my uncle get shoved off his rabbit and chicken farm and everything else. But I'm going to bring up something that's really obvious. We're always looking at the high-tech person, the person this or that for these high-paying jobs. Well, not everybody's suited for that, number one. And then number two, I'm going to bounce a little bit, so forgive me. I have nothing against companies coming here with jobs, but the responsibility in terms of infrastructure and housing also needs to be packaged with that, just like ranches did throughout history. Just like even the feudal lords did. They provided the housing for their workers, one, because they didn't have to travel, two, they had a little skin in the game, so to speak, for the caregiving of it. And what we have to be cautioned about is there's shenanigans and illegal action now over toward the coast, Point Reyes, where 99-year leases were undermined that branch, Strauss Dairy being one of them, over 100 and something years, they housed 150 low-income farm workers. That's typical. In ag and livestock and farming, very often the housing goes on the property. That's what I think is necessary. I think there's probably some kind of incentive that can be built where when Bosch puts in their facility, they also put in housing for their I mean, I would say that even for the ski resorts, I think it should be on them to house temporary employment. I don't know why it always has to come back to us, the taxpayer, to do all the subsidy for these corporations when it should just get baked in. That you're going to be training these people. You could have dormitories for that, and you could actually even have a pool. Other countries have done that, where if the people don't work out, they have a little pool of money so they can move out and move to something else or upgrade eventually by savings and purchase a home or build a home in the near vicinity. It's insanity. Everything keeps getting hammered the same over and over, expecting a different result, and I'm really sick of it. And if you can go back and actually look at how this country was founded on homesteading, having to work a property for 3 years before you could actually own it or vest yourself in it in homesteading. We need to move back.
Thank you, Diane.
towards
Can you
that,
please
not
wrap up
away
your
from it.
comments?
Yes, I'm just saying, look back through history. This has been solved before. It's just been corporatized and money and the land stolen. So with that, I yield.
Thank you. I think it's also important to note that, as Barry mentioned, some of these high-wage jobs aren't typical four-year degree jobs. They are jobs that are just require certificates, and so I'm really encouraging people to be able to access some of those certificates that can actually create a high-wage earning job. So just thought that I should point that out. All right, any other comments online? There's no one else, right?